if you're a parent particularly, but school team, group home staff, whoever, you're really looking for a collaborative relationship between you and the consultant providing service. You want to make sure that whoever is providing services sees your goals and your problems as a priority. So they're not coming in with their own goals or their own priorities. They're really asking you about your goals and your priorities for your child and for your family. They conduct a functional behavior assessment. So they gather information via interview, checklists, things like that. They observe the child in the actual setting, so they get some real hands-on, eyes-on experience of what it is that's happening. They gather that data to sort of see what's happening pre-intervention, right? So that we can understand what's going on, and also so that we've got some data so that when we start to implement an intervention, we can take more data and compare to see, are things actually getting better? Because if they're not getting better, then it's our job as the consultant to do something differently, okay? The consultant that you're working with should then develop either one PBS plan or many PBS plans, as the case may be, in consultation with you. And I say one or many because there are some different ways that you might approach this. Certainly we can design a PBS plan that kind of covers all contexts, the entire day. It's sort of in place all the time. That's often really difficult for people to implement, especially when they're just learning to use a lot of these strategies. So a lot of the work that I do when I'm working with families or school teams or whoever I'm working with is that we identify some target routines. So like with this child, a bath routine, a transition off the computer, a dinner routine. So we sort of pick small activities during the day and target those to improve, and we sort of do one at a time. And what I find in my own experience is that when I work with families on maybe 3 or 4 routines, themes start to develop. We tend to use similar kinds of strategies across multiple routines, and parents start to get increasingly comfortable using those strategies. And inevitably, I arrive on a parent's doorstep one day and they open the door to say, you know what? All of these strategies we've been using here, I decided to just go ahead and use them here, and guess what? It worked. And then I kind of go, fantastic, my job here's done, and you don't need me anymore. And right, I go off somewhere else. So once you kind of learn and become confident in using a lot of these strategies, parents start to learn how to look at new situations and sort of see what's going on and design some solutions for themselves, okay? But you want your consultant to work with you in designing a plan or many plans in consultation with you. You want to make sure that your plan or plans fit. They fit your family, they fit your lifestyle, they fit your culture, and that the plan addresses your priorities. So that's a really important thing. We also want to make sure that the consultant guides you in implementation of the plan. So a consultant should never sort of just deliver a stack of paper saying, here's your plan and good luck, bye, right? Because that's not going to be very useful for you. You want to get a written plan that you can understand, but you want to get much more than just that written plan. We have something that's called behavioral parent training. Again, it sounds very fancy, but really what that involves is sitting down with the parents, for example, and reviewing that written plan and making sure that they understand what's in it. Role playing. So like I said, the consultant from my doctoral research, she went in and role played that bath routine and how to implement it. And she played the role of mom and mom played the role of the child, and then they swapped roles so that mom would have an opportunity without her child to actually see how this works, right? How the intervention is implemented. And it gave the consultant an opportunity to teach some of those skills outside of the context of the child. So they could stop and talk about things, okay? So role play, then consultant models for you. So maybe the consultant comes in and does the dinner time routine or the bath routine or the homework routine with your child while you're there watching and observing. And then you switch roles again and the consultant observes you implementing the strategies and coaches you through. And then over time, as your confidence and your skill set builds in terms of your ability to implement that plan, your consultant starts to fade out and, maybe checks in once a week, once every 2 weeks. And the idea is that eventually you can fly on your own, right? So that's something that's really important. So never should you just get a stack of paper that says do this and that's the end of consultation. That should really be the beginning. The consultant often will implement initially. So if we don't kind of go through this stage where the consultant comes in and does some role play with you and modeling and whatever, sometimes I might look at a situation and go, the parents are really, really exhausted and the child's behavior is pretty challenging. And, the parents are really exhausted and I'm not sure how successful everybody's going to be. Maybe I'll come in and I'll implement this intervention first. So maybe for a week, I come in and do this routine every day. Because as a new person, and I'm not kind of involved, I can come in and get some of that change happening quickly. And it also gives the parents a little bit of a rest, okay? And then once things improve a little bit, then I bring the parents in. So we've still done some training. I've still done modeling. I've done role play with the parents, but they've had a bit of a break, a bit of a breather from the actual in the heat of the problem. And I've perhaps helped the child improve a little bit. Then I bring the parents in. They're a bit rested. The child's acquired a few skills. Everything is working a little bit better, and then they can take it from there. So sometimes that's how we'll approach things as well. It's really an individualized decision based on the family, the child, the context, all kinds of things. And then finally, when you're working with a consultant, you should be making sure that the consultant is responsive, right? Responsive to your concerns, responsive to the challenges that you're experiencing, because rarely is any plan perfect from the very beginning, right? Oftentimes, you sort of get partway through implementing an intervention and you discover that something isn't working quite right, or I don't quite like how this is, or this doesn't fit as well as I thought it would. And your consultant should be open to sort of revisiting what you've selected as strategies and tweaking things to make them work better, okay? So ideally, your consultant's working with you to solve any additional problems. Now, as behavior analysts especially, we're known for loving data, and I have said I understand most people do look at data as a 4-letter word, and it's not a good 4-letter word. We do need data to let us know if things are working, right? That's essentially how I know if the work that I'm doing is having the right kind of effect, okay? But that doesn't mean that parents have to be walking around with clipboards and counters and all kinds of paraphernalia and that they're taking data 24/7, because that's not doable in anybody's life. So I need to come up with a data system that's going to be doable for whoever needs to collect that data. I don't need data from every second of every day. I can probe every couple of days even. We're still good. But I do need some data. So again, I work with families to figure out what's the best way to collect some data that's not too taxing for you, but still gives me enough information so that I know if the job I'm doing is leading to an improvement, okay? Because if I'm not doing something to lead to an improvement, I need to do something differently, right? I'm not serving you very well if things aren't changing, okay? So I should, as the consultant then, be reviewing data on a fairly regular basis and making any changes as needed based on the data. So if I'm seeing that things aren't improving as they should, I use that data to go back and figure out, well, why aren't things changing and what do we need to do differently, okay? It's kind of like, if you went to the doctor and said you were sick and the doctor just said, well, let me see, I've got in my cupboard, try this, try that, oh yeah, and try this, okay, bye, see you in a couple weeks. You wouldn't feel very good about that, I hope. Usually, if you go in and describe some symptoms, the doctor collects some data, blood draw, other kinds of medical tests, and then based on that data, makes some treatment decisions. And then after a period of time, takes more data to see if things have improved. That's essentially what we're looking at doing here, okay? So think about it that way. I know that lots of people don't like the idea of data because they do think it means walking around with the clipboard all day, and I don't mean that that's what families should be doing because you have enough on your plates. So the consultant should then, after you sort of start to fix some problems, help you learn to solve your own problems, because one day you'll be flying on your own. okay? And so teaching parents how to think differently about the problem behavior that they're seeing. Teaching parents how to look at a situation and go, well, what are the kinds of things that are pushing my kid to the edge? What are the kinds of things that might be triggering my child's behavior? Are there some skills that my child clearly doesn't know? It's not his fault, not her fault. They don't know yet. And am I responding incorrectly to problematic behavior? What do I need to change, right? And so that's really what parents should then start looking at. What do I need to change to make the environment more facilitative of more appropriate behavior? What do I need to teach? How do I need to respond differently, okay? And then ideally, the consultant is going to involve the entire family as much as possible. So this shouldn't just be about, it's yet another task for often moms, right, are the ones who end up working with the consultant. But it shouldn't be just one parent in the household, or it shouldn't just be the parents but not the siblings. Or if, the grandparents are involved in the child's life, we should be bringing the grandparents in as well, right? So involving people who are a core part of that child's family. Everybody should be involved ideally.